Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Gopti Ballava ki jai, Sri Sri Gauratai ki jai, Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari. Glories to the assembled devotees, glories to the assembled devotees, glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome all the devotees and guests. So we'll read from the Bhagavad Gita. This is the program for this Wednesday night discussion. It's a systematic discussion of verse after verse in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is the 7th chapter, verse number 20. And this is a verse that starts a series of verses on a particular topic. Krishna is speaking on this particular topic here. Knowledge of the Absolute is the chapter entitled. So I'll read this Sanskrit. Let's see if we can do it by memory. Kamais. Tais. Taira. Ritagyana. Prapadyante.
Nadevataha.
Tam tam. Niyamam.
Astaya.
Prakrutya.
Niyata.
Swaha. Kamastai Ritagyana.
Prapadyantana devataha. Tam tam niyamam astaya. Prakrita nirata swaha.
Translation: Krishna speaking. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Please repeat: those whose intelligence has been stolen.
Those whose intelligence has been stolen
by material desires.
Surrender
unto the demigods.
Surrender unto the demigods.
And follow the particular rules and regulations.
Rules and regulations
of worship. According to their natures. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Those who are free from all material contamination surrender unto the Supreme Lord, engage in His devotional service. As long as the material contamination is not completely washed off, they are by nature non-devotees. But even those who have material desires and resort to the Supreme Lord are not so much attracted by external nature because of approaching the right goal, and soon they become free from all material lust. In the Srimad Bhagavatam is recommended that whether one is a pure devotee and free from all material desires, or is full of material desires liberation from material contamination, one should in all cases surrender to Vasudeva and worship him, as stated in the Bhagavatam 2.3.10. Vakamo sarvakamo vaham moksha karma udaditi reina bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods for immediate fulfillment of material desires. Generally, such people do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are in the lower modes of nature, ignorant and compassionate, and therefore should worship various demigods. Following the rules and regulations of worship, they are satisfied. The worshippers of demigods are motivated by small desires and do not know how to reach the supreme goal. But a devotee of the Supreme Lord is not misguided. Because in Vedic literature there are recommendations for worshipping different gods for different purposes, For example, a diseased man is recommended to worship the sun. Those who are not devotees of the Lord think that for certain purposes demigods are better than the Supreme Lord. But a pure devotee knows that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the master of all. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 5:142 it is said, Ekala Isha Krishna Asa Pita. Only the Supreme Personality of God and Krishna is the masters and all others are servants. Therefore, a pure devotee never goes to the demigods for satisfaction of material needs. He depends on the Supreme Lord, and the pure devotee is satisfied with whatever the Lord gives. Om Agyanam Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksu Unitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swami Rupa Kadamaya Didati Swampadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavinam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, Krishna has just finished speaking about the Gyanis, those ultimately who take the devotional service after cultivating knowledge for many, many births. To come to devotional service, we might say, according to scriptural injunctions, requires great amount of devotional service and pious activities. Pious activities and a lot of sukriti, or good karma, in previous lives. But in this age, there's a special feature where Lord Chaitanya has made devotional service available to even to the most, what we say, those who are the lower modes of ignorance, and lower modes of material nature, such as ignorance and passion, simply by His mercy. But generally, most people take to spiritual life in one form or another to fulfill material desires, or to increase material happiness in life, to get something better in life, a better material situation, better health, more facilities for sense gratification. The list is quite long. In Sanskrit we say, Aham Dehi, Rupam Dehi, Yaso Dehi, what else? Dhanam Dehi, Janam Dehi. Dehi means give me. So people approach the Lord for something material. But material desires, as Krishna will explain, simply entangle one more in the sources of misery. Even though one may fulfill a material desire, still, by fulfilling a material desire, one becomes more entrenched in material nature, and therefore becomes more entangled in the process of birth and death. So, if you study the scriptures, or at least review the revealed scriptures, you'll find that there are various types of worships for different types of people. And why is that so? Why isn't there just one type of worship, for a pure devotional service? Why is there also injunctions in all Vedas? Because Krishna says to Arjuna in the second chapter, Tasaya Veda, Arjuna, the exact Sanskrit. Triguna Visaya Veda, Nistriguna Arjuna, Nirdvandva Nityasaka. So, Niryoga Shema Apravan. The Vedas deal mainly with the three modes of material nature. So those who study the Vedas usually are looking for something, some value within the aspect of the material energy. So he's telling Arjuna, he's giving him instructions, become transcendental to these modes. Be free from the dualities and anxieties that come by way of material desires. and be established in self, be established in devotional activities. So generally the Vedas are so vast and so very, what we say, complicated, that when you read Vedic literature, you'll get confused. Because there are different recommendations for different types of people to practice some aspect of spirituality, or a combination of material and spiritual, in order to raise them from A to B, and from B to C, like a gradual step-by-step process. But that could take lifetimes. That could take lifetimes. So no one is guaranteed that once they go from the next step, they won't fall back to the previous step. So therefore, that's why it seems like there are contradictions in Vedas, or various types of worship, but it's actually for different types of mentality. You know, people who are so, we say, entrenched in sense gratification, when they think about spiritual life, they can't, it doesn't make sense at all. It's just like for people who have no other option in life, so they take the spiritual life. That's their understanding. Can't get a job, all right, so worship God. Or they don't even believe in God. And they're so engrossed in the material energy that they're covered by this illusion. So therefore Krishna sends Lord Shiva to somehow or other to bring these people up to a higher platform, and they worship Shiva for material desires. And Shiva allows them some material desires, and because they worship Shiva, they get a better material, situation. They raise from the platform of ignorance to passion. And so, if you in the Bhagavatam, it says there are so many forms of worship, and so many deities you can worship, all for various types of material desires, or for different elevations from one mode to another. But all is within the same material energy. None of it is transcendental, and all of it leads only to more material activities. So here, Krishna is talking about those who are in the higher modes of material nature, the modes of goodness, or even a little bit of passion. They want better sense gratification. Better sense gratification. So they worship the devas, the demigods, such as Surya, Chandra, or who else? Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva, or even Shiva himself, in order to get a better material position, or to gain some material powers, or to overcome some material difficulties. And Krishna calls them, their intelligence has been stolen by illusion. That's what Krishna says. He's saying that they surrender to the demigods, and there's a rules and regulations how to worship the demigods according to the particular demigod. But Krishna will go on to explain in the previous verses that, that these demigods are actually controlled by me. And he says, whatever people gain from the worship of demigods, it's limited and it's temporary. In other words, it's subject to the element of time and cannot give one for complete satisfaction, because it may not bring the happiness one is looking for, even though one may fulfill material desires, even according to what we call religious principles. There are two types of people who try to fulfill the material desires. Those who just do whatever they want, and those who follow the scriptures in order to fulfill their material desires. I think even in the Western society, no one understands that there's a process for fulfilling material desires. So people just go for whatever they think they want. But the process of fulfilling material desires according to scriptures teaches you that ultimately you have to give it up. Just like if you want to eat meat, there's a mantra and a process for eating meat according to Vedic regulations. And what is that? You find a goat, on the full moon night at a certain month, and you chant some mantra into the goat's ear, and then you kill the goat. But what is the mantra? The mantra is saying, my dear Mr. Goat, because you are giving your life so I can eat you, in the next life I will also be killed by you. That's the mantra. It's called mamsa, iti mamsa. And so that, therefore, when you realize what you're chanting, you think, what is it? Is it actually worth it? This desire to enjoy meat? I have to get killed in the next life in order just to do that. So you give it up. So there's allowance. There's also principles for those who want to drink alcohol. There's also mantras for that. But then again, there's also a very heavy reaction. So it is meant to discourage those who are looking for material desires. And here, as Krishna is explaining very nicely, that this is very less intelligent, because it says here that one who engages in devotional service, one who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not for something material, but one who worships Krishna for devotional service. Krishna fulfills all the desires. Kama sarva kama va moksha kama udarati tirena bhakti yogena jideta purusham bala. It says whether you have all material desires, no material desires, or you're desiring liberation from material energy, you simply engage in devotional service. That's all. That is the elevator process. That brings one to the stage of what we say pure satisfaction. Because everything is controlled and owned by the Supreme Personality of God. Bhoktaram yagya tabasam sarvaloka mahesham suhidam sarvabhutanam shantam mama yantam richtiti. This verse I just quoted is the last verse of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains this is the formula for complete peace. And then in this verse, Krishna is explaining 3 principles of which are foundational that make up the peace formula. And what are those 3 principles? That everything is owned and controlled by the Lord. Whoever creates something owns it. Sometimes people say, well, the Lord created the material world for our enjoyment. Well, yeah, there is that element there, but ultimately it belongs to Him. And He allots you your enjoyment according to your position. But still it belongs to Him. So Krishna owns, and He not only controls everything through His energy. Tarasya Shakti Vidhaya Suyate Svabhava Vijnana Bala Kriya Cha. That all the energies that make up the Lord's internal and external energies, the spiritual and material energy, are directly working under His control. And therefore, nothing is outside of the jurisdiction of the Lord. And sometimes it's mentioned, not a blade of grass can move without the sanction of the Lord. So He's directly and indirectly controlling everything at all times. Directly, for those who surrender to Him, and indirectly to the material energy for those who are trying to enjoy separate from Him. But in all cases, everyone is under His energy. So one who is aware that God is the supreme enjoyer and the controller, He's a controller, but then again, the enjoying principle. He is called Bhokta. That means that He is the supreme enjoyer. It's not that His enjoyment restricts our enjoyment. Our enjoyment is connected to His enjoyment. And when we try to enjoy separate from the Lord, we create something that is artificial or different from the principle of enjoyment. And therefore we don't ever necessarily get enjoyment, we get suffering. Because it's a diversion from the principle of enjoyment. So, therefore, when we say Krishna is this, He's the supreme enjoyer, but he's really the only enjoyer. And when we want to enjoy, we can find our enjoyment in him, under his guidance. So that's the first principle. Everything is controlled and owned by the Supreme Personality of God. The second is, the second principle, is controller and enjoyer. Yeah, that's actually two principles. And those who because he controls, just like in this world, you want to enjoy something, you try to control it. You want to enjoy the family, so you control the family in a certain way to facilitate some enjoyment. So the principle of enjoying and controlling are what we say intimately connected. One cannot enjoy without trying to control. We see that everywhere. When people lose control, they think, oh. But actually no one has control in the first place. You ever have that experience? You lost control. But actually, it's just you're back to the awareness you never had control. That's what it really is. We never lose control. We just are aware finally that we never had control. That's what it means to lose control. The illusion that I am controlling is the false ego that by my activities things are happening. But Krishna says, you can do things, but you can't bring about the results of your activities. The results are outside of your jurisdiction. Everyone tries for happiness, but everyone gets. Sometimes it happens, or sometimes they get distressed, and sometimes they get a mixture of both. So no one can bring about anything by their activities, because the material energy is working in a certain way. So, controller and enjoyer. And the last thing that makes up that principle of peace is Krishna's the best friend. Suhidam Sarvabhutanam. He's the friend of all living entities. So this principle of friendship is an interesting principle, because when we try to understand what is friendship, we might speculate. Well, a friend is someone who is there when you need them, or someone who is like-minded and you can share similar ideas and topics. That's someone, and someone who is maybe outside of the immediate family. But there's three kinds of friends according to Vedic literature. There's Suhit, Bandhu, and Mitra. There's official friend, casual friend, and real friend. Official friend is the people you meet from day to day. You maybe, you do business with them. That might be a friend. Casual friend is like the friendship we make in this material world with someone who's close to us. But then again, Suhit means Krishna, real friend. So what is a real friend? A real friend is one who knows you and one knows what you need. So therefore Krishna is the friend of all living entities because he knows what we need. We know what we want, and we think we know what we want. But we think that what we want and what we need are the same thing. That's not necessarily the case. What we need is what Krishna can provide. That is the happiness we're looking for in different ways. So that, Krishna says, I am the best friend of all living entities, because I can provide everything you need. The happiness, the knowledge, the peace of mind, everything. Because the spiritual energy and the material energy are like completely opposite. In this material world, what is peace? Can we find peace anywhere? You can go to a very secluded place and be alone, have a nice atmosphere, but your mind disturbs you. So where's the peace? Or your body disturbs you. Or even if that's not disturbing, the external environment with mosquitoes and so many other things are there to disturb you. So there's no peace in this world. People are looking for peace. Peace comes, that's the basic, or not basic, but the initial feature of spiritual life, is that we stop struggling to fulfill our material desires. We become peaceful. Here's where peace is. When we stop trying to fulfill our material desires, there's a sense of peace that comes with that. As soon as we stop. The desires may still be there, but the struggle brings about a sense of peace. It's the relief from trying to bring about something that may or may not bring us satisfaction or happiness. But real peace comes when one becomes free from all the tendency to fulfill material desires. Because you can't fulfill material desires, that's the problem. That's why Krishna says those whose knowledge, intelligence has been stolen by material desires, they worship devas for better forms of sense gratification. He calls them less intelligence. And he calls them Prgm. Prgm means one who is deprived of knowledge. Real knowledge. Real knowledge is not to somehow or other manipulate the material energy to make a better material arrangement. Because you can't. It's not possible. We can't control the material energy. And you get, just like some people, money comes to them without even trying. And sometimes people work so hard and get nothing. They never. Why? It's their karma. The karma brings about, or doesn't bring about, what you're destined to get. That's why Bhagavatam says, Tasyaiva hetu patitena kobita, nalabhite bhavata brahmata uparyada, natalabhite anya sukham, kalena sarvatra, gambhira ramhasa. It's a beautiful verse. It's from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 5th chapter, verse number 18, spoken by Narada Muni. He's explaining that those who are actually, the complete opposite of this verse, those who are actually intelligent and have good philosophical understanding, don't try to look for any permanent situation anywhere in the material world, whether it's in the higher planets, with long life, good features of material sense gratification, and so many other benefits of material, or down to the lowest planets, Patala Loka, where there's hardly any material energy. Those who have that intelligence don't aspire for anything within the realm of the three modes of material nature, even higher, middle, or lower planets. Why? Because it's all temporary and always subject to difficulties. And then the last part of the verse, which is the point we're trying to bring out, is that misery comes, although you don't try for it. The material world is two things. You try for happiness, you try to avoid misery, right? That's the basic of material life. It's all based on two principles. Find happiness, avoid suffering. But it says, even though you struggle to get happiness, you get suffering. Why? Because it's your karma. You can't change your karma. Simply by changing one's position in the material world, it's like changing seats on the Titanic. If you're up on a higher deck, when the Titanic was going down, the people who were on the very bottom, they saw the iceberg, and they were going down first. And they were the first ones to disappear. The ones on the top were dancing and singing and having a good party, but eventually that party ended soon also. So any position in the material world, by manipulating the material energy, you can't change the results. It's just the same. That's the way the material energy works. Krishna says, Mama Maya, it's my energy, it's in my nature. So, therefore, this verse is instructive, because simply to try to access happiness through material activities doesn't mean, even the best planners can't provide a guarantee that you'll get happiness from anything you do. Sometimes you see, there is a fire in a house, and the fire is so strong that it jumps over, not to the next house, but to the house after the next. And the one in the middle doesn't get burned. It's just the karma of those people in those houses, that's all. You can't escape your karma. It's like, whatever you're destined to get, you will get. You can change, you can go from one material situation to another. Just like people win the lottery, so they get a lot of money. But what happens? They also get distress. And that's a statistic. Most people who have won the lottery in the United States of America, their lives went down. Because they got apparently something that was going to bring happiness, but their karma was not meant to bring it, to give them that happiness. So from what appears to be a good thing, turned out to be simply the results of their negative karma. That's all. It comes in different forms. You marry a beautiful girl, and you're in love, and suddenly she runs away with somebody else. Well, what to do? That's just the way the material world works. You can't change your destiny. Karma, daiva nutrena. So simply by changing positions in the material world, or using your intelligence to manipulate the material energy, simply becomes more and more of an entanglement of that same energy. Because material energy is powerful, and it works only under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Maya, Ichana Rupa. It's a shadow of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's very powerful. Sristi Stisti Palaya Sadhyega Chayeva Vivati Durga Ichana Rupa Apya Chitesti Tesa Govinda Mari Purusham Kamam. Maya is powerful. And she is the pure devotee. And Sristi Stisti Palaya, she can create and she can also destroy. So no one can face Maya and expect to overcome Maya. But one who takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes free from the influence of the material energy and develops real peace and makes progress towards the goal of life. And what is that goal of life? Prema Pumarta Maha. Why is that the goal of life? And what is Prema Pumarta Maha? It means to develop love for God. Love for God is the natural constitutional position of all living beings. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Saruka Bunai Shravanadi Siddhi Chitti Kuriya Udai. In the hearts of all living beings, pure, ecstatic love for the Supreme exists. It's covered. That's all. It's not like it. You have to bring it out in from outside, or you have to learn it. You simply have to reveal it. It's there within the heart. So that is actually, according to scriptures, the wealth of the living being's existence, to uncover that hidden treasure of pure love. And that's found only on the path of bhakti, or devotional service. Everyone's trying, at least in the material world, to fulfill that desire for a relationship and love through various manifestations of existence, through families, through friends, through societies. Prabhupada said, everyone's trying to love somebody. If they can't find anyone to love, they get a dog. And they love their dog. So, the loving propensity is there within the heart of all living beings. But it only can be fulfilled in relationship to the source of that love, and that is Krishna. Krishna is the reservoir of all loving relationships. And that love becomes perfect. The love of God is nothing like love in this world. Because love in this world is temporary and fraught with so many difficulties. The love of God is perfect and awakens transcendental knowledge and fulfills all one's desires completely and perfectly. And that's why Krishna is saying in this particular verse, you know, those who are aspiring for better material situations, they have their intelligence is destroyed. They lost their intelligence. Why? Because although it's better than the average person who is simply trying to fulfill their senses in day-to-day life, still it is ultimately temporary and ultimately cannot fulfill one's desires. And even if one reaches the heavenly planets with long life, then simply that kind of karma is also expendable and will also force one to again fall down into the material world. It says that those who go to the heavenly planets and succeed in worshipping the devas and attain that, and then after some time, just like an airplane that is flying in the sky, runs out of gas, comes crashing down. And so one again falls to a lower situation, even lower than they were before. So why is it like that? Because our nature is not to enjoy anything material. We can use material energy to serve the Lord, and that is the purpose of the material energy. To use whatever manaso, deho, geho, yokichumor, arpilum tu alpade, nanda kishore. Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays. He gives the perfect prayer for those living in the material world. He says, my home, my wife, my possessions, my wealth, my very existence, it's yours, Lord. It belongs to you. So when we use whatever Krishna gives us in Krishna's service, that becomes spiritualized. It's like if you take an iron rod and you put it in the fire, you leave it in the fire, it becomes like fire. The metallic qualities are gone. When we put ourselves or any of our, what we say, possessions in the service of the Lord, they become spiritualized. They become spiritual. And then, rather than being a source of suffering and difficulty, they bring us closer to the Supreme Lord in devotional service. And Krishna says that in the 9th chapter, which is the best of all chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. The 9th chapter is called the most confidential knowledge, where he explains that whatever you have, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you are, use it to serve me. That's the perfection of life. Yat karosi, yaranasi, yat yahosi, tadasi, yat tapasi, takunte, yat kurusho, mararpana. So that's the perfection of life. Is to understand, or to at least make the goal of life in line with our best interests. No one knows their best interests. I drive along the streets, I don't drive, but I ride in cars and I just see, all the billboards and all the signs of people's activities. What are their interests? It's all about making money, getting more money, and trying to enjoy the senses in various ways. But the scriptures condemn that kind of existence as no better than animal life. In fact, it's considered to be worse than the animals because of the living entity in the material world and in the human form of life has good intelligence. So the animals don't have the intelligence to discriminate. Therefore, they're engaged in activities of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So the human being, or the soul in the human form of life, simply acts to fulfill material desires as the goal of life. And then that is worse than the animals because they have misused the higher intelligence. And that is the statement of the Shastras. And the statement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead too. And he calls it Rikthikyam. Krishna calls it Rikthikyam, deprived of real knowledge, or crippled-minded. Or in other words, it's duskritina, miserly. There's sukritina and duskritina. Sukritina means one who has good wealth, and the other one miserly. Miserly means not to understand the value of something. That's what a miser is. A miser is a person who has a lot of money, but doesn't use it, so therefore doesn't understand the value of money. So one who has the human form of life and doesn't engage it in devotional service is considered to be a miser. Okay, so any questions, comments? Srimad Bhagavad Gita.
Maharaj, so once situated on the mode of goodness, there is intelligence, and it is used for the Lord and understanding and studying the Vedas. But then yet that intelligence is not enough to bring us back to Godhead? Or?
On the mode of goodness, intelligence or knowledge is a concomitant factor in the mode of goodness. So what is that knowledge? Not the knowledge to, simply to live a more pious and more, obviously, materially successful life. It's the knowledge that I'm not this body. So that knowledge, I'm not this body, means, well, if I'm not this body, where am I? So that knowledge is supposed to bring that answer, or at least bring you to seeking that answer. Who am I? What is my real identity? So those who ask that question, they're actually using that higher knowledge in the proper way. Or the knowledge that there's no happiness in this material world. So that's the mode of goodness. The mode of ignorance is complete darkness. The mode of passion is like a cloudy day. And the mode of goodness is like a sunny day. There's illumination, but then the question is, what do you do with that knowledge? So Krishna tells Arjuna, come to the mode of goodness and perform, then serve me in the mode of goodness. And then you come to what is called Sudha Sattva. Sattva means goodness, Sudha means pure goodness. That goodness which leads to, which is transcendence to all material modes of nature. That is the perfection of all goodness. Knowledge means to know the difference between matter and spirit. The difference between what is mind, what is the body, and what is the soul. That's real knowledge. Everyone's trying, no one's succeeding. Yes, Triviko, I spoke on your favorite verse 529 tonight.
My question is that, we understand that from the mode of goodness one can, come to the transcendental mode of goodness and then, attain Krishna consciousness and like that. But I was wondering, somebody was asking me about this was, can you use like the lower modes to help give Krishna consciousness? In other words, like for instance, like
not really.
Well, okay.
The lower modes are simply, the mode of ignorance is destructive. There's nothing good in the mode of ignorance. Its characteristics are sleep, intoxication, madness, and various forms of sinful activities. The mode of passion is a hard struggle to make money and to enjoy the senses. The only thing good about the mode of passions is that it's a creative mode. That's the only good quality about the mode of, those in the mode of passion are creative, but materially creative. That's all. The mode of goodness starts to make you realize that these other two modes are simply forms of suffering. That's all. The main feature of the mode of passion is to work hard for money, or work hard to enjoy your senses. That's the main feature of the mode of passion.
What if you were to say, for instance, for example, if you were to use some music that was in a very low mode, but you were to use,
If you use it in Krishna service, then that can be somewhat transcendental. But it's not used, it's used maybe to preach, or to attract a certain type of people to spiritual life. But the Indian bhajans are on the heart chakra. They're so sweet. We might use a little rock and roll music to attract people to Hare Krishna. But the music itself is in, the mood is in the lower chakras, and it just increases sex desire. Although it may have a spiritual message there, it just works on the lower chakras because of the nature of the music. You study music, music works on the different chakras. But the bhajans, that goes to the heart chakra because of the way the music is expressed. It's the science of music. We can use those other musics as a way to preach and attract people who would never come to the higher modes because they like rock and roll. So now they can do rock and roll and chant Hare Krishna. But then when they get a little purified by chanting Hare Krishna, hopefully they give up their rock and roll. Because the music of rock and roll is on the what they call it, the lowest chakra, which just the music itself is very, how do we say, it doesn't elevate the consciousness up. But you can use it for preaching. But don't get trapped. Any other questions? I'm sure there's another question somewhere. Somehow. I see. Yes.
Maharaj, is it dangerous then for a devotee to preach through rock and roll music because then they can get past
It's called bridge preaching. It's called trying to catch the fish without getting wet. Don't get wet. Don't fall in. In other words, not everyone can do that because one may be again attracted to the same thing you're trying to use. So if you're fixed, and you're not going to get attracted or, what we say, contaminated by it, then you can do that. It's better to stay away from it if you can. So whether you know if you can or can't, you can tell whether you're getting effective or not. You know, like this, Prabhupada did the Avalon Ballroom in 1967 in San Francisco. Allen Ginsberg arranged for Prabhupada. Prabhupada was taking every possible opportunity to preach in those days. And he was led to the hippie scene in San Francisco. So, Moby Grape, the Grateful Dead, Canned Heat, some of those bands were playing that night. It was all strobe lights and people were dancing and it was all acid and everything. Prabhupada was up on the stage. He was giving a talk and Prabhupada led a kirtan, and the kirtan just blew the lid off the whole place. Everyone went mad at kirtan. And, you know, it was really amazing kirtan. But one brahmachari who came with Prabhupada, that was the last time they saw him. He got sucked into the whole psychedelic scene, you know. But one good thing happened. The band member from Canned Heat, the drummer, joined the Hare Krishna movement. Took initiation from Prabhupada. So, yeah, Prabhupada did that. But he said there's no place for a gentleman. So we might do that, but not everyone can do that. If you like fire, you don't get burnt by the fire. But if you're more like paper, you burn up. So one should not risk their spiritual life in order to try to do something. One should know, save yourself first, and then you can save others. So that preaching is there for certain people can do that. Not everyone can do it. It's called risk. Take a risk. Anything else? Okay, there it is. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Bhagavad Gita ki. Om Vipin